Hello and welcome to a very special Warhammer Wednesday. In this week's video I'll also be looking at my Sokar pattern Stormbird. It's about 70-80% complete, I'd say. It's not all glued, and I wanted to give you the review before it was all glued, because I'm now at the stage where with these big kits it's much preferable to spray the model and spray different parts before you completely construct it. It's the same with the Warlord Titan, same with a Warhound, Reaver. All the big kits, you're best off gluing what you can and then spraying and painting some of the parts before sort of like the final assembly. So I'm at that point in the construction of this model. So I thought, what better time to give you this review. Now, before I continue with my review, one of these models will set you back £750. It's an awful lot of money, it really is, dedicated to the most hardened collectors and loyal chapter masters. It's a massive model. If you've never built a Forge World model before, I wouldn't recommend you start off with this. I'd recommend you start off with like a Sokaran or a Spartan tank, one of those models, and just work your way up, because it's a lot of money to invest on a model that you do need, skills and experience to build one of these correctly. If this is your first model, there's going to be a lot of techniques that you just haven't had the experience to improve on and master. There are a few things missing on the model, notably the floor. The floor is not on there. Also the doors, the side doors, they're not on there. Or magnetised. I'm still sort of playing about with magnetisation and things, but in my showcase video where the model will be painted, I'll show you a few of the tips and tricks of sort of magnetising thick, heavy doors and things. I'll look at those things in detail. Also the turret sort of balls aren't in. They can move. I've tested them. They fit. They're fine. I've also magnetised the hatches, so they just slot in and stay in quite nicely. There is room in there for me to paint his armour and the console and things, and it's up to you. You can even just glue that on and keep it super glued on. So all the ball joints aren't on there. The feet, the landing feet, there's only 3, which isn't much for such a massive model, but the feet aren't on there yet, and there are a few gaps and things in places, just because everything's still creaking about and has yet to settle, and I've yet to sort of go with a hairdryer and sort of move everything in its final place. I've really enjoyed building this kit. It's been incredible to build such a massive model. It's difficult to give you some sort of size comparison without me putting a Space Marine on there. So Space Marine will fit just like that, and that just gives you some sort of size comparison. I've got a Contemptor as well. This thing can carry Contemptors of any size, and there's Contemptor, so you can fit Contemptor pretty much through one of its side doors. Yes, a Rhino can fit in the rear of the Stormbird. Like so. Now you see it, now you don't. It's worth noting that it has to be sort of like one of the Demos pattern Rhinos, because these with the pintle mount weapons, they won't fit, so you're not going to fit those in completely. And finally, I'll show you a couple of other sort of size comparisons. We've just got a Land Raider here. Land Raider's quite large sort of units anyway, and you could probably fit a Land Raider on the side of its wing. Likewise, Fellblade, which is absolutely massive and definitely has the biggest footprint of any Space Marine tank. The Mastodon is sort of a similar sort of length, but it's nowhere near as wide. Hopefully you can see that. What I'll do is I'll just put the Fellblade right here, and that just gives you a sort of size comparison. You could fit 2 and a bit Fellblades lengthwise, and probably about 3 or 4 Fellblades widthwise in terms of the wingspan. Weight-wise, the model is very heavy. I remember seeing somewhere it's like 7 kilograms or so. That might be right, I haven't weighed it. So now what we'll do, we'll look at some of the individual parts and things that make up this model, and I'll pretty much sort of disassemble it, because it's it's almost push fit at the moment. So of course the top cockpit screen is removable. I haven't yet put magnets on in there, but I think I probably will easily put a couple magnets in there and a couple there, and then that'll just slot in and that'll be magnetized, but I haven't done that yet. And also once you've painted it and all the rest, then you can put the sort of cut out the perspex windows and glue them in place. It's usually best to use PVA rather than the plastic or super glue. Super glue is prone to sort of frosting plastic, clear plastic parts. So there you go, that's just the top cockpit part. I'll just gently lower the wings down because I don't want them to smash and knock the missiles off. The void shields, yeah, the aircraft is so big that it has void shields, they're magnetised. They're exactly the same size as the ones on the Warlord. The Warlord has 8 of these things, but the rules say it only has 6, so take that as you will. So they magnetise on there absolutely fine. This cockpit section I've not glued, it's a bit of a pain to get out. Haven't glued, and also there are ladders that go to like the second floor, and that's just so that I can get to the shoulder pads and the seat sort of cushions, or whatever you want to call them, and I can get to all the instruments, things like that. It's going to be so much easier holding this and painting it than if it was glued onto the model itself. Obviously I'm going to have some difficulty sort of painting in there, but once this is glued on there, you're never ever going to see that front bit. Unless you magnetise this on there, but it's really up to you. The way that this is made and the way that the front of the Stormbird is made is quite a tight fit anyway, and just to detach this nose off the fuselage, you know, regularly is definitely going to cause damage to those side bits, so I made that decision. This is the front. It's odd when I first got the model because I thought that that was sort of on the top, but it's not. You got this smooth nose on the front, and you got these doors here. So, and then this is where the front leg will go. I'll just remove the rear, so this piece will eventually glue on there, and it'll attach to the rear fuselage. If we just remove. Oh, this is the rear fuselage where you can fit your sort of said Rhino. As I said before, if it's got a pintle weapon, it's not going to fit in there. The ones with the combi bolters in the front, they probably will fit in there, but it's up to you. If you like sort of like the realism and you like to put a Rhino in there, then that might be important to you. But yeah, for obvious reasons, again, I've left this loose because I will spray it black, and then I'll spray the interior silver, and then I'll spray the sides sort of black just to go over any silver that I missed. And the rear door opens fine. It sort of stays like that. I think I magnetised the Mastodon store, I'm not, but there's not really much need to magnetise this. It goes in there and it stays in there quite solidly. I highly doubt you're going to be whizzing this model around the battlefield, so much so that the rear hatch will open and the Rhino will fall out, something reminiscent of Uncharted or something like that. It's not. I don't think that's going to happen. Then you've got this twin-linked heavy bolter. No need to magnetise that, because once this piece is glued on, it's going to keep that secure, and also the option to move it. So there you go. That's the sort of rear fuselage part. I'll show you one of the wings. No real reason to show you both of them. But here you've got the 3 Dreadstrike missiles. It comes with 6. I haven't put the twin-link heavy bolters on, and this is just what it looks like. It's quite a large piece of kit. Let me compare that to a little Space Marine. You can have sort of like a one-on-one knife duel on the wing. Absolutely fine. So it's probably best to talk about the weapons. As standard, it comes with 4 turret-mounted twin-link las cannons. They're the ones on the ball joints. So 2 this side, 2 that side. So you got 4 shots. Its ballistic skill is only 4, but at 3+, you've got 4 there that are twin-linked. Most likely going to hit the target. You've also got 3 twin-linked heavy bolters. So you've got 1 in the tail and then 1 on each wing. then you've also got, so they're its main weapons. So it doesn't have anything like, turbo laser or a Thunderhawk battle cannon like the Thunderhawk obviously has. But you can replace the Dredge Strike missiles with a macro bomb cluster payload, which is an apocalyptic barrage that would just absolutely annihilate anything. And you can also give it Orbital Strikes, the ability to use Orbital Strikes. Notice strikes, not one or two, but strikes. So every single turn, I'm looking at that. 150 points that costs, but for that, it's then a D weapon and it's unlimited. So one could argue that might well be more beneficial to have a 7-inch unlimited D indirect fire weapon more than a Thunderhawk turbo laser. But I'll talk about the rules in a moment. And then obviously you get the armoured ceramite and you get the void shields, things like that. So let's go back to the model. I've glued these wings on and thrusters, and then I've also glued the socket joints. As you can see, there's a lot of gaps and things because it's still, like I say, 70-80% complete. And I want to spray all the inside and spray that all metal and wash it and highlight it and things like that. And the same with that door there. So this part itself is very heavy, and I'll probably have this sat down, and I will be picking out every single nut and bolt. I'm like that, but that just gives you some sort of idea of the inside of the model. And this has just worked for me, gluing it up to this point. So now what we'll do is I'll sort of put it back together and talk to you about the rules. Okay, here we go. So the rules I'm using are in the Legion Astartes Age of Darkness Army list, the most recent book by Forge World from 2016. One of these will set you back 850 points. Then if you want to use Orbital Strikes as well, which is 150 points, you're looking at an even 1,000 points for this model, which is basically the cost of an army, really. It counts as a Lord of War choice, and it's a super heavy flyer. It's got hover and transport. It can hold 50 models. It can carry dreadnoughts of any type. So yes, you can have your Leviathan dreadnoughts in here. Each dreadnought counts as 10 models. So again, 5 Leviathan dreadnoughts, which would just be nuts. But the dreadnoughts can only embark and disembark using the rear ramp only. That might change their effectiveness. Jump infantry, rapier batteries, bikes and jet bikes. Bikes and the jet bikes count as extremely bulky models. Also, it can transport a single rhino, sort of inside it. I've showed you how that works. And then it can also, on top of the rhino, which can occupy 10 models in there, obviously, it can occupy 25 models in its transport capacity. And again, rhino can only use the rear ramp. It's special rules, it's an assault vehicle, it's got shield projection, and it's a reinforced structure. I'll talk about them in a moment. Its war gear, I've already mentioned. It's got the 4 turret-mounted twin-linked las cannons, 3 twin-linked heavy bolters, 6 wing-mounted Dread Strike missiles, armoured ceramite, machine spirit, dual void shield generator. Again, I'll talk about that in a moment. Its stat line is ballistic skill 4, its front armour is 14, its side is 13, and its rear is only 12. But it does have 12 hull points. So compare that to a Thunderhawk, which is obviously another super heavy flyer for the Space Marines. The Thunderhawk, believe it or not, only has front and side armour of 12 and a rear of 10. So this thing has got 14, 13, 12, and a Thunderhawk has got 12, 12, 10. It's also got 3 more hull points than a Thunderhawk. Stormbird can carry 50, the Thunderhawk can carry 30. Now it can carry Legion dreadnoughts, but it can't carry dreadnoughts of any kind. So it's only the sort of smaller type of dreadnoughts. You wouldn't be able to put a Contemptor one in there. Back to this model, it can take a few options. So instead of its Dread Strike missiles, you can have a single macro bomb cluster payload for 50 points. It doesn't come with that, which is a shame, and it's very odd, especially for a model that costs £750. Not to include a secondary option for weapons is just, it's not right. And also it can change any of its twin-linked las cannons for heavy bolters for free. So yes, you can have 7 twin-linked heavy bolters on this super heavy flyer. Now you compare that to the Thunderhawk, which comes with 4, but it also has the 6 Hellstrike missiles and it has a hull mounted las cannon. So there you go, there's a bit of a trade-off there. And then finally it can upgrade it with the ability to use Orbital Strikes. It's 150 points. Notice how it says Orbital Strikes, not Orbital Strike, but Orbital Strikes. So 150 points, that would make it a nice rounded 1,000-point model. I talk about the specific rules. So you see these void shields here, they look exactly the same as on the Warlord Titan. This dual void shield generator, while its void shields are active, any hits scored against void shields instead, and the void shields got an armor value of 12, glancing or penetrating hit, or a hit by destroyer weapon causes it to collapse. So same sort of void shield rules as normal. And then at the end of each of its controlling players' turns, you roll a d6 for each collapse shield, and 5+ instantly restores it. Nothing new there. Now, but it has this new rule called shield projection. So if it's in hover mode and remains stationary, controlling player can declare that it's projecting its void shields at the start of their turn. So that means that the area extends to cover all units within 12 inches of the Sokar's main hull and wings in their protection. Main hull and wings, I would say it's this is the main hull and its wings. So you've actually got quite a massive range here, 12 inches all the way around to project it, which is huge. 12 inches, you could easily fit a Land Raider or a few Land Raiders around it. You could probably fit a Fellblade under its shield projection. So that's massive that it can project this. And obviously then that means that they have to attack the void shield and not the model, if that makes sense. It's got this reinforced structure, so it's got an invulnerable save of 5+ against any attacks that have breached its void shields. That's incredible. And then it goes on to talk about its weapons. So these Dread Strike missiles, we'll just compare them to the Thunderhawk's missiles. So the Thunderhawk's missiles, which it does carry 6 of them, so the same number, they're Hellstrike missiles. Now, their statistics are 72-inch range, strength 8, AP 2, heavy 1, sunder 1 use. Now you compare them to the Dread Strike, which have basically a 50-inch increase, they're 120-inch range, so you're usually going to be hitting most things on board. I mean, 120-inch range is the same as a Volcano cannon. Their strength 10, which is the same as a Demolisher cannon. They're AP2, they're Ordnance 1, they're 3-inch blast, and they're 1 use. So they lose the sunder, they've still got the 1 use, but they have a 3-inch blast. So you're getting 6 3-inch blasts. So basically 6 plasma cannons at 120-inch range, but strength 10. That's just amazing. I mean, 6 of them. And you can, with the machine spirit as well, and it being super heavy, you could actually fire all 6 of them at 6 different targets if you wished, because it's a super heavy. So that is phenomenal. 6 tanks, 6 predators, have all 6 against the Land Raider or a Spartan, something like that. You can do that. The macro bomb cluster, which you can opt to exchange for the Dread Strike missiles, is strength 8, it's AP3. It's a bomb 1, it's sunder, apocalyptic barrage, 3d6, 1 use. So again, if you've got big chunks of troops, orcs or even normal space marines, even sort of small tanks, medium tanks, strength 8 on the big apocalyptic barrage, that's going to leave a big hole in the opposing force. And speaking of leaving big holes in forces, if you upgrade it to be able to use Orbital Strikes, the Orbital Strike is in limited range. It's a strength D, AP1. It's a massive blast, so not the 5-inch blast, but the 7-inch blast. It's barrage, indirect fire only. It's a primary weapon 1. So again, the ability to use an Orbital Strike on something and Dread Strike missiles on something, not even including your 4 twin-link las cannons and then your 3 heavy bolters, is just phenomenal. And then remember, it can then have 50 Space Marines in there, or 5 Leviathan Dreadnoughts, or 5 Contemptors, on top of all of its weaponry, its armour, its hull points, its void shields. and all of its extra special rules, like its 5+ invulnerable and things like that, it is an absolutely dominating piece of kit. It just sees the Thunderhawk and it just raises that bar even further with all of its extra shenanigans and armour and weapons and bigger transport capacity and things, and different transport capacity that this brings to the table. It's definitely a multi-use vehicle, and it's really the very sharp tip of a Space Marine force. Fluff-wise, yes, this was like one of the most newest forms of a Stormbird. If you read the fluff, this is a Sokar pattern, and the previous patterns were even bigger, and they could possibly hold more troops and different things. But this is one of the newer ones, and you can see that the Thunderhawk was taking its cues from this, because the Thunderhawk was very, very new in the Crusades and things, and all the legions and things were moving over to Thunderhawks anyway, because they were smaller, more nimble, and easy to produce as well. In a sort of Civil War type scenario like that, it was just so much more beneficial to create these easier and quicker to produce Thunderhawks than these large, bulky, bit of a bigger target vehicles. I mean, you look at the Thunderhawk, it has its two sort of thrusters on each wing, and then it has the sort of dorsal wings with the las cannons on. But with this, it's much more work to obviously create four. And then the void shield technology, all the turret technology in there. I can see why they're sort of progressed and moved over to Thunderhawks as a preferred method of deploying their troops for spaceboarding actions, for planetary assaults. Although, you know, drop pods do have their roles in those strategies. Anyway, that is the end of my massive review of this massive model. Absolutely stunning model. Incredible. If you're on the fence of buying one and you've got 750 quid, you know, burning a hole in your back pocket, go out and get one. Absolutely love it. I think it's going to look incredible with the chapter and the my upcoming army update video, which will feature the Warlord and sort of my Titan Legion. Absolutely incredible model. Huge fan, and it was one of the three models that I had my eye on for 2016. It was this, the Mastodon, obviously, which I've done my unboxing and review and things like that, and the Night Porphyrion. Who knows what next year will bring? This past 2015 and 16 has been absolutely incredible time for the hobby, an incredible time for models and these massive kits that might well be sort of unusable in the game, because where do you draw the line in sort of miniatures? You know, this is a Space Marine, you can play 1,000 versus 1,000 points. These models are very, very overkill, and they're definitely aimed at sort of like the more collectors and, you know, everyday gamers or every week gamers. There you go, that is the end of my review. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching. The Emperor Protects.